Ethan Carter never thought he'd find love like this. Claire Morgan wasn't just beautiful. She was the kind of person who could make you forget the world was cruel. And for Ethan, she was home. But then came the diagnosis, terminal, 6 months, maybe less. Ethan spent sleepless nights asking himself, what can I give her before she's gone? One quiet evening, in the stillness of her hospital room, he pulled out a velvet box. Claire, I can't let you leave this world without being my wife. Will you marry me? Yes. Yes, I will. They married the next day in a courthouse. No flowers, no guests, just the promise to love until the end. Those first weeks felt like stolen miracles. Ethan pushed her wheelchair through the park, read her favorite books, cooked soup she barely touched. One snowy night, she whispered, "You make me forget I'm sick." He smiled, but deep down he knew. Every moment was borrowed time. Then, something happened no one could have predicted. Spring crept in slowly, melting the last traces of winter. The air felt softer, the days longer. Claire began to walk without leaning on Ethan's arm. Her laughter grew stronger, no longer followed by a cough. The color returned to her face, the kind of glow Ethan hadn't seen since before the hospital visits. She started waking before him, making coffee, humming softly in the kitchen. Every small change felt like a miracle in motion. At her next checkup, the doctor studied the scans for a long, silent moment. Then he looked up, eyes wide in disbelief. "Claire, your tumor is gone. Completely gone." The words hung in the air, almost too impossible to believe. Claire's hands flew to her mouth as tears filled her eyes. She turned to Ethan, half laughing, half sobbing, unable to speak. It was a miracle. A life that had been measured in weeks had suddenly opened into years. A story that was supposed to end had only just begun. But with life came change. Claire dyed her hair a brighter shade, bought new clothes that felt bolder, more daring. She started joining new social groups, filling her calendar with art shows, weekend road trips, and late-night dinners. Ethan began to notice her phone lighting up long after midnight with names and numbers he didn't recognize. Sometimes she would smile faintly at the screen before turning it face down. "They're just friends, Ethan. Don't be paranoid," she'd say with a quick kiss on the cheek. But the more friends she made, the more her world seemed to spin without him at the center. The spaces they once shared began to feel like they belonged to her alone, and the less she seemed to need him. One evening, he came home earlier than usual. The house was quiet except for the faint sound of her voice drifting from the kitchen. Through the doorway, she was leaning against the counter, twirling the cord of her hoodie, laughing softly into the phone. The kind of laugh that carried a warmth Ethan hadn't heard directed at him in a long time. "I'll see you Friday. I can't wait." She froze when she noticed him standing there, her smile fading almost instantly. With quick fingers, she ended the call, muttering something about a work friend, before changing the subject. After that night, the gaps grew wider. There were more evenings when she claimed to be staying at a friend's, and entire nights passed without so much as a single message. The silence between them became heavier than any argument they'd ever had. Then came the night she didn't come home. Ethan sat in the dark, the television off, the clock ticking louder with every passing hour. He kept glancing at the door, convincing himself that at any moment, her keys would rattle in the lock, her familiar footsteps filling the silence. But morning came, and the doorway stayed empty. It was late the next afternoon when she finally walked in, her eyes avoiding his, the weight of unspoken words hanging between them. She took a deep breath and with a trembling voice said, "Ethan, you saved my life, but I'm not the same person anymore. I need to find myself." The words cut deeper than any argument. He wanted to ask if finding herself meant finding someone else, if the late-night calls and vanishing weekends had a name. But his throat tightened, and instead, he just nodded as if agreeing to something he had no power to change. A week later, she was gone. No long goodbye, no final promise, just an empty closet and the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. Now, Ethan walks the park alone, past the bench where they once laughed until their cheeks ached, where her head once rested on his shoulder. The seasons change around him, but that bench and the memories never do. And every time, he feels the same quiet ache, the same truth he can't unlearn. Sometimes love isn't about holding on. Sometimes it's about letting go, even when the time you borrowed is the only time you ever had.